What if the reason teenagers violently rebel or, the reason you get a blinding migraine on a random Tuesday?
Oh, yeah, out of nowhere.
Right, out of nowhere. And the reason your energy just completely crashes at 3 in the afternoon? What if all of that comes down to a single invisible shortage in your physical architecture?
It's a fascinating question.
Because we usually treat every single symptom in the human body like an isolated glitch, right?
Yeah.
You take a pill for your head, you drink a massive coffee for your energy.
And you just assume teenagers are simply wired to be moody.
Exactly. But what if there is like one core element quietly running the entire biological engine? Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are digging into an incredible set of excerpts from a piece called Magnesium: Essential Functions, Dietary Sources, and Clinical Research.
It's a great paper.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out why this one simple mineral is directly linked to everything from your mood and your migraines to your bones and your heart, and, how you can make sure you aren't running on empty.
Because a lot of people are.
Oh, for sure. So whether you are feeling randomly fatigued right now, or maybe you're prepping your meals for the week, or you are just insanely curious about human biology, this deep dive is going to fundamentally change how you look at a simple spinach leaf. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and it really does start at the most foundational cellular level. The source material points out that magnesium is required for at least 300 chemical reactions in the human body.
Wait, 300?
300. Think about that for a second. 300 different distinct processes rely on this one mineral just to happen.
That's insane.
It is. And arguably, the most critical job it has is the actual production of energy.
Okay, so we're talking about the mechanism that physically powers our cells.
Yes. So when your cells are creating the energy that powers your everyday life, they are synthesizing something called ATP. And that vital synthesis process absolutely depends on magnesium to function.
I've always heard magnesium described as like the spark plugs in an engine.
Right, that's a common one.
But reading through these sources and understanding the ATP process, it feels more like the currency exchange booth at an international airport.
Oh, I like that.
Like, your body has the food, which is the foreign cash, but without magnesium sitting in that booth, you literally cannot convert that food into the usable cellular energy that your body recognizes and spends.
Yeah.
You just end up with an energy crash because the biochemical conversion simply didn't happen.
That is a much more accurate way to visualize it, actually. If the exchange booth is closed, the metabolic system just stalls. And it doesn't just power the system, it actually provides the structural integrity too.
What do you mean by structural?
Well, about 50 to 60% of the body's magnesium is stored directly in our bones, where it plays a totally vital role in bone metabolism.
Okay, let's pause on bone metabolism for a second, because I feel like we often think of bones as this dead stone, like scaffolding that just sits there once we're done growing.
Which is a massive misconception. Yeah. Bone is living, dynamic tissue. It is constantly being broken down and rebuilt every single day of your life.
Every day.
Yeah. And magnesium acts almost like the foreman on that biological construction site.
Okay.
It dictates how calcium is laid down and organized into the bone matrix. And the research is so incredibly clear on this that even a small deficiency causes the body to stop building effectively.
Really? Just a small drop?
Yeah. Researchers have fed lab animals a low magnesium diet, and it actively triggers immediate bone loss.
Wow.
The biological architecture just starts to weaken and degrade because the foreman isn't there to direct the rebuilding process. And the scientific consensus strongly indicates this exact mechanism happens in humans too.
Okay, so you need it to run the currency exchange for your energy, and you need it to literally direct the continuous rebuilding of your skeleton.
Yeah, but what's fascinating here is that magnesium doesn't just build the structure and power it. It acts as the primary regulator for the entire nervous system.
The nervous system too.
Yeah, it keeps the electrical wiring of your body calm and functioning properly. Which is exactly why a lack of it leads to such a massive, interconnected array of problems.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Because if magnesium is literally keeping our physical engine running, building our bones, and keeping our nerves balanced, do we actually have enough in the tank to keep the machine going?
The short answer is no.
No.
Not at all. The harsh reality, according to the data in our sources, is that the average American takes in only about 75% of their daily magnesium requirements.
75%?
Yeah, we are operating in a chronic silent deficit. And that risk of deficiency, only increases as we age.
Makes sense.
It's also significantly higher for people who are obese, people with chronically high blood sugar levels, or those dealing with gastrointestinal problems like Crohn's disease, where internal absorption is compromised.
Right, because the gut just isn't pulling it in.
Exactly. The data also shows that African Americans have higher rates of deficiency. And on top of all that, even certain common medications like diuretics actively flush magnesium out of your system, reducing your levels even further.
Okay, so we're operating at a 25% deficit right out of the gate, and some of us are even worse off. How do we actually fix the diet?
Well, it comes down to food choices.
Right, because the text lists a few excellent food sources. Spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens are right at the very top.
The leafy greens, yeah.
Then you have things with very good amounts like pumpkin seeds, soybeans, black beans, cashews. But wait, reading further down this list, chocolate and coffee both have magnesium.
They do, yes, along with dairy products and various meats.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this. If it's in chocolate and coffee, two things I and millions of other people consume on a daily basis, shouldn't my levels be absolutely off the charts?
You would think so.
Right. Why isn't a massive Hershey bar considered a health supplement? What happens to the magnesium here?
Well, it comes down to processing and the massive difference between trace amounts and optimal intake.
Okay.
A casual coffee habit or eating a highly processed candy bar where the cacao has been heavily diluted with sugar and dairy isn't going to get you anywhere near the finish line.
Right.
The recommended dietary allowances, or RDAs, are incredibly specific. For adult men, the target is 400 to 420 milligrams per day.
400 to 420.
Right. And for adult women, it's 310 to 320 milligrams. To hit 100% of that every single day requires real, conscious dietary intentionality.
It's not happening by accident.
Exactly. You usually have to focus heavily on those dark, leafy greens and raw seeds. You simply can't get there on processed milk chocolate.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what if people decide to just turn to supplements to bridge that 25% gap?
Well, the sources are very specific about what forms actually work best in the human body.
Because there's a bunch of different types, right?
Right. The most highly absorbable forms are magnesium aspartate, magnesium citrate, magnesium lactate, and magnesium chloride. But you have to be careful with how you supplement. Magnesium is frequently used as the primary active ingredient in antacids for indigestion and in strong laxatives.
Oh, because of the classic laxative effect?
Precisely. The biological mechanism there is that unabsorbed magnesium salts draw surrounding water directly into the intestines.
So it pulls water in.
Yeah, it changes the osmotic balance of your gut. So excess magnesium supplementation has a very known tendency to result in loose stools or diarrhea.
Lovely. So while too much magnesium draws water into your gut, the right amount is busy doing something entirely different for your brain's electrical wiring.
Very true.
Let's pivot upwards to the nervous system. If magnesium balances our nerves, what actually happens to our brains when we are sitting in that 25% deficit?
This is where the clinical research gets incredibly compelling, especially when we look at migraines.
Okay.
Researchers analyzed a 2016 Taiwan meta-analysis that looked at dozens of randomized controlled trials involving over 1,000 participants globally.
And what did they find?
They found that migraine attacks are heavily associated with a systemic magnesium deficiency. But the treatment data was the truly remarkable part.
Oh, so?
For acute migraine attacks, administering intravenous magnesium was beneficial in as little as 15 to 45 minutes.
Wait, 15 to 45 minutes? That is incredibly fast for an acute migraine. How is it doing that physically?
It comes back to that electrical wiring we talked about. During a migraine, certain nerve cells in the brain become hyperexcitable.
Right.
Calcium rushes into these cells, causing them to fire excessively. Magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it physically sits in those cellular receptors and blocks the calcium from rushing in, preventing the nerve cells from overfiring.
That's amazing.
And on top of that, it helps relax the blood vessels in the brain. So it calms the nerves and opens the blood flow simultaneously.
So it's basically a double whammy.
Exactly. And taking oral magnesium essentially acts as a prophylactic, keeping those channels blocked so the migraine never starts.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It sounds like magnesium is acting almost like noise-canceling headphones for the nervous system.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Like when your levels are optimal, it physically blocks out the excessive electrical noise and sensory overload.
Right.
But when those levels drop, The noise becomes completely overwhelming, the nerves misfire, and that manifests as a blinding migraine.
Exactly.
Does it affect our overall mood the exact same way?
It appears to do exactly that.
Mm.
The sources detail a massive 2015 study of nearly 9,000 U.S. adults, pulling from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey database.
Okay, huge study.
Huge. And they found a statistically significant, glaring relationship between low daily intake of magnesium and clinical depression, specifically in subjects younger than 65 years old.
Wow, depression too.
Yeah, even after adjusting for other lifestyle factors, that link between missing magnesium and depression remained incredibly strong. The noise-canceling headphones are taken off, and the brain is struggling to cope with the unfiltered input.
That is a massive sample size. And the behavioral impact wasn't just limited to adults, right? Because there was a study on teenagers in the sources that completely blew my mind.
Yes, a 2015 Australian study. Researchers tracked 684 adolescents, monitoring their dietary intake and then conducting detailed mental health assessments at ages 14 and 17.
Okay.
They were categorizing mental health issues into internalizing problems like anxiety and social withdrawal and externalizing problems like acting out and aggression.
And the results were totally counterintuitive. I mean, I would have expected a low magnesium diet to cause that internalizing anxiety, just feeling overwhelmed by the electrical noise.
You would think so, right?
Yeah. But the study found a significant inverse association with externalizing behaviors.
Yeah.
We're talking about aggressive behaviors, delinquency, and severe attention difficulties.
Exactly.
When the magnesium intake was low, the teenage rebellion and the outward aggression essentially spiked.
It's wild. The researchers themselves noted that this discovery has massive public health implications. Promoting magnesium-rich foods in schools and at home could literally be a physiological strategy to prevent behavioral problems in adolescents. The noise in the nervous system you mentioned earlier doesn't just cause physical pain in the form of a migraine.
Right.
It fundamentally alters behavior, emotional regulation, and impulse control.
So the lack of this one mineral disrupts the brain, causes migraines, and alters our mood. But the physical noise of deficiency doesn't just stay in the brain.
No, it doesn't.
Over time, it creates absolute chaos in the body's metabolic engine, too. So let's get into the systemic shields, how this affects the cardiovascular system.
The cardiovascular data is incredibly robust.
Yeah.
A 2012 UK study analyzed over 20 trials with thousands of people. They used a mean dose of 410 milligrams a day and determined that supplemental magnesium significantly lowered blood pressure, specifically showing a greater reduction in systolic blood pressure.
Let's unpack the why there. Is it using the same mechanism as it does in the brain?
Very similar, yes. Just like it relaxes the blood vessels in your head to fight a migraine, it helps the smooth muscle cells lining your entire circulatory system relax.
Okay.
When those blood vessels relax and dilate, the literal pipes of your body physically widen, and the pressure of the blood flowing through them naturally drops.
And the protection goes way beyond just blood pressure. The sources dive heavily into metabolic syndrome.
Right, which is essentially a clustering of dangerous metabolic traits. Think abdominal obesity, glucose intolerance, hypertension, and high cholesterol.
Basically all the bad stuff.
Yeah, a bad combo. A 2015 U.S. study looked at the health data of over 9,000 adults, and they found a clear inverse association. The subjects with the highest intake of magnesium and calcium had the lowest risk of metabolic syndrome.
Wow.
The women who consistently met the RDA saw the greatest decrease in risk. Men had to push their intake a bit higher, over 386 milligrams a day, to see those lowered odds.
Wait, so if we are seeing this dramatic effect in the U.S., does it hold up globally where diets and lifestyles are completely different?
It absolutely does. There was a 2016 Korean meta-analysis looking at thousands of participants, and they found a massive gap in magnesium levels between healthy people and those with metabolic syndrome.
So it's everywhere.
Confirming that this inverse association is a universal human trait, not just a localized dietary quirk.
The list of benefits in these sources just keeps going. I mean, studies tracking tens of thousands of people for decades show that women with high magnesium intake cut their risk of developing diabetes by 50%.
Yeah, there was a 2017 Japanese study, though they didn't observe the same protective effect in men.
Right, and other longitudinal studies, like one from 2015 tracking people for 21 years, show that people with the lowest serum magnesium are almost 2.5 times more likely to hit end-stage renal disease where the kidneys just completely fail.
It's sobering data.
Okay, I have to jump in here. I have to push back hard on this.
Go right ahead.
Because Honestly, reading through all this is starting to sound like a snake oil pitch from the 1800s.
I know it sounds.
It cures your migraines, it lowers high blood pressure, it prevents diabetes, it saves your kidneys. Can one single mineral really fix all of this, or are we just seeing a convenient correlation? Like maybe people who eat a lot of spinach and pumpkin seeds also happen to go to the gym, avoid fast food, and generally just take much better care of themselves.
It's a fair point, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect biological sense, and I assure you it's absolutely not snake oil.
Okay, convince me.
Remember that metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and kidney function aren't isolated systems. They are deeply interconnected metabolic processes that rely on cellular efficiency. And what did we establish at the very beginning of this deep dive?
That magnesium is required for over 300 chemical reactions, including the currency exchange for our cellular energy.
Precisely. Because magnesium is foundational to those 300-plus cellular reactions, a deficiency doesn't just break one isolated thing.
Right.
It causes systemic cascading failures across all these interconnected metabolic systems. It's not a magic bullet that targets and cures diabetes or kidney disease. It's the foundation of the house.
Oh, I see.
If the foundation is missing 25% of its concrete, you're going to get cracks in the walls, the roof is going to sag, and the plumbing is going to break. You don't have three different unrelated problems. You have one massive foundation problem.
That makes total sense. It's the silent enabler of all these other systems, which explains why its impact is so vividly seen at the extreme ends of the human lifespan.
Exactly.
How we grow and how we age. The text highlights a wild 2016 study on mice that looked at the very beginning of life.
Right. Researchers took pregnant mice and fed them either 100% of their recommended magnesium or just 10%.
Okay.
They found that even this moderate deficiency significantly impaired the physical size and the functioning of the placentas. The placenta couldn't uptake nutrients efficiently, and it vastly increased something called oxidative stress.
Let's define oxidative stress for the listener, because that's a term thrown around a lot in health circles, but rarely explained.
Sure, think of oxidative stress like cellular rust. As your cells process energy, they produce exhaust unstable molecules called free radicals.
Right.
If your body doesn't have the internal tools to neutralize them, that exhaust builds up and starts rusting or damaging the surrounding cellular machinery. Magnesium is crucial for building the antioxidants that sweep up that exhaust.
So does the cleanup crew.
Exactly. Without it, the rust builds up, and in the case of those mice, that maternal deficiency and resulting cellular rust directly negatively impacted the fetal weight and overall development.
And as those children grow, the requirement stays just as urgent. A 2014 study out of Houston looking at kids found that the sheer volume of magnesium intake was actually more important than how efficiently the body was absorbing it when it came to optimizing how their bone minerals developed.
Yeah, that foreman on the construction site demands a constant delivery of materials or the building slows down.
And then, if we look at the other end of the lifespan, there was a 2014 Italian study on healthy, physically active elderly women with an average age of about 71 and a half.
Right.
Half the group took a magnesium supplement for 12 weeks, the other half didn't. And by the end of the trial, the women taking the magnesium had significantly better physical performance scores.
Which is huge for quality of life.
Exactly. The researchers concluded that optimizing this mineral could essentially prevent or delay the age-related decline in physical performance. So whether you are a pregnant mother building a placenta, a growing kid building bone density, or a 7-year-old trying to stay physically active and stave off cellular rust, the requirement never stops.
The currency exchange booth always needs to be open.
Always. But does this mean we should all just be blindly throwing magnesium supplements into our daily routine?
This raises an important question, and the answer is proceed with intention, not blindness. As the sources emphatically state, it is almost biologically impossible to take in too much magnesium from simply eating whole foods.
Because your body just handles it.
Yeah, your kidneys regulate dietary intake incredibly well, excreting what you don't need. So increasing your intake of leafy greens, nuts, and seeds is incredibly safe and highly recommended.
Right.
But manufactured supplements need to be managed carefully. We discussed earlier that excess supplementation can lead to unpleasant gastrointestinal side effects because of that water-drawing osmotic mechanism in the gut. It's a powerful mineral. You want to meet the RDA, not arbitrarily flood your system.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom all the way out, it's remarkably clear that magnesium is basically the ultimate unsung hero of human biology. It is a mineral that actively dictates our cellular energy, the stability of our nervous system and mood, the relaxed health of our cardiovascular system, and our physical longevity. And yet, statistically speaking, you listening to this right now are probably not getting enough of it.
Probably, yeah.
So take a moment and genuinely look at your own plate this week. If you're a man, are you hitting that 400-ish milligram mark? If you're a woman, are you hitting that 310-ish mark?
And as you think about the food on your plate, consider this one final thought. If our bodies evolved over millennia to absolutely depend on magnesium for over 300 life-sustaining chemical reactions, but the average modern diet consistently falls 25% short that basic requirement, what does that say about the massive fundamental disconnect between our evolutionary biology and our modern, highly processed food systems?
It's a scary thought.
Are we basically living our entire lives in a chronic state of artificial deficiency simply by eating what is considered a normal diet today?
That is a wild thought to sit with. Are we feeling bad, tired, and irritable just because our normal food isn't really normal anymore? We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those everyday symptoms, keep learning about the invisible machinery keeping you alive, and maybe today, swap out that chocolate bar for a handful of pumpkin seeds. We'll catch you on the next one.